A lot of executive orders only last sort of a year or during an administration. I've always been of the opinion that we should do things the proper way, and that is that Congress should pass laws. I am in favor of doing some immigration reform, but it should be done in the appropriate fashion. The other thing is that the order makes a difference for a lot of us in immigration reform. If you do any type of forgiveness without securing the border first, then it serves as a beacon to the world that says, hey, America doesn't care how you come in. They'll either let you stay or give you status or let you vote. So really you have to have a secure border where you know who's coming, it's an orderly fashion, and you have adequate legal immigration. Then I think there are some things that we could accommodate people with. For example, the 11 million, I think, are never going home, don't need to be sent home, and I would incorporate them into our society by giving them work visas and making them taxpayers. But I wouldn't do it until I'd secure the border, because if you do it now, everybody else says, hey, I can come, and they'll just do the same thing for me. So you have to make sure the way you do it's in an orderly fashion so you don't send the wrong signal. You know, I would say that in the Republican Party, we have a spectrum from libertarian, conservative, limited government to sort of more middle of the road, and I think that most people and a lot of people would probably classify them as being more middle of the road. I'm just saying that basically that in the spectrum within the Republican Party, they'd probably be closer to the middle of the road or moderate. But you know, we can have moderates in the party. I'm not arguing that we can't have moderates in the party. We can have a wide variety of opinions, and this would probably be, you know, when you give someone a label, it's a distillation of, you know, perceptions as well as hundreds of positions. And I think over time, judgment of label or character isn't just one person. It's what everybody kind of thinks is what the perception is. And so I don't think I'm alone in thinking that you know, Mr. Bush or Mr. Romney are sort of towards the middle of the road as far as Republican politics go.
There was some very early polling last year that led people to label you the front runner or the person to beat. Are you in any way more comfortable now that the attention is on other people who are...
I'm not glad that's over with. You know, I think that in deciding whether or not we try to reuse a nominee that we had before, some of it has to be looked at on winnability and how successful were we in the election. Obviously, we weren't successful, and then you have to ask yourself why. It isn't always about whether you're right or wrong about the argument. It's about whether you attract new voters. So I think we have to look towards, when we're deciding on who's going to be our next nominee, is who attracts new voters, who will bring a new constituency into the Republican Party to allow us to win. It isn't so much like, I was right, you were wrong kind of stuff. I don't think that necessarily is going to be the deciding factor. You know, the thing is yes, Russia is an adversary of ours. Are we enemies like the Cold War? I mean, this is a long philosophic discussion that isn't so easily encapsulated in a sort of they are or they aren't. It's like, well, do you think Russia is an enemy or they're not an enemy? Well, they're definitely an adversary, and there are things they do that we obviously disapprove of. Crimea, the incursions into Ukraine, but we're not at war with Russia. Do we need to have an adequate defense to defend our country? Absolutely. But I don't think that just saying, oh, that there was somehow some sort of rightness there, all of a sudden says, my goodness, that person was the only person who ever said something like that. There's still some other active debates in foreign policy, and I think that do separate out the Republican field. And one of those, I would say, is that we have to have the debate about whether or not the unintended consequences of war are fully appreciated. And Hillary's war in Libya, I think, really has made us less safe. I think that most Republicans criticized Hillary's war by only saying we needed more troops. So many Republicans wanted more troops in Libya, and I think that's a mistake also. But this is a debate over the facts and the consequences. But I think Americans are less safe because of what's going on in Libya now. It's a chaotic region, and I personally blame Hillary Clinton for goading and working and pushing the president into the war. I think that the war in Iraq was a mistake, and I think that the region is less stable. So I think Hillary's war in Libya was a mistake, but I also think the war in Iraq ended up making the region less stable. And that's something we can have a debate over. But I think the objective facts are that Iraq's a mess. Syria's a mess. Libya's a mess. And so it's hard for people to say that our intervention in any of these wars, that when we've toppled a secular dictator, we've gotten chaos, and we've gotten the radical of Islam, and I think more danger for America.